A century of conflict. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the most enduring and complex conflicts of our time. Rooted in competing claims to the same land, it has fueled decades of violence, mistrust, and displacement. The recent escalation of violence in 2021 brought renewed international attention to the conflict. At the heart of the conflict lies the question of land and self-determination. Both Israelis and Palestinians claim the same territory as their rightful homeland, with historical and religious justifications. The establishment of the State of Israel in 1948 led to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Since then, multiple wars, failed peace negotiations, and ongoing violence have characterized the relationship.
Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, has been a central figure in Palestinian politics for over 2 decades. Elected in 2005, he assumed leadership with the hope of guiding the Palestinian people towards a peaceful resolution with Israel. However, his extended tenure, marked by a lack of elections and accusations of authoritarianism, has raised concerns about the democratic legitimacy of the PA. Abbas's presidency was initially welcomed by many Palestinians and the international community. He was seen as a moderate voice, committed to negotiations and a two-state solution. However, as years turned into decades without significant progress towards Palestinian statehood, frustration with Abbas's leadership grew. His decision to postpone scheduled elections in 2021, citing Israeli restrictions on voting in East Jerusalem, sparked widespread criticism and protests. Many saw it as a tactic to cling to power and avoid a potential challenge from Hamas. The absence of free and fair elections has created a sense of disillusionment and apathy, particularly among younger generations.
The cancellation of the 2021 Palestinian elections was a pivotal moment in recent Palestinian history. It not only exposed the deep divisions within Palestinian society, but also ignited a wave of protests and unrest. The decision to postpone the elections, while ostensibly justified by Israeli restrictions, was widely perceived as a power grab by Abbas and his Fatah party. The Palestinian people, yearning for change and frustrated by the lack of progress towards statehood, took to the streets to voice their anger. The protests, initially focused on the cancellation of elections, quickly morphed into a broader expression of discontent with the PA's rule. Adding fuel to the fire was the increasing popularity of Hamas, particularly among younger Palestinians. The cancellation of elections, coupled with the rising influence of Hamas, created a volatile atmosphere.
In recent years, accusations of Israeli apartheid have gained traction in international discourse. Human rights organizations and some world leaders have drawn parallels between Israel's treatment of Palestinians and the former South African regime. These accusations often cite Israel's control over the West Bank, restrictions on Palestinian movement, and disparities in rights and resources between Israelis and Palestinians. While the situation on the ground is undeniably complex and fraught with challenges, it's crucial to approach these accusations with nuance and a comprehensive understanding of the facts. Equating the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with apartheid oversimplifies a multifaceted reality and ignores crucial distinctions. The situation in the West Bank, while concerning, is a result of ongoing conflict and failed peace negotiations, not a premeditated system of racial segregation.
The convergence of these factors, simmering political unrest, economic hardship, and a perceived lack of opportunity, created a tinderbox environment in the Palestinian territories. The cancellation of elections had extinguished hopes for democratic renewal, while the Palestinian Authority's perceived corruption and ineffectiveness fueled a sense of disillusionment. Into this volatile mix stepped Hamas, adept at exploiting Palestinian grievances to advance its own agenda. Hamas recognized the opportunity presented by the escalating tensions and sought to redirect Palestinian anger towards Israel. The spark that ignited the powder keg came in the form of clashes between Palestinian protesters and Israeli police at the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem. The incident, though seemingly isolated, tapped into deeper resentments and historical grievances, quickly escalating into wider unrest. Rockets were fired from Gaza into Israel, prompting Israeli airstrikes in retaliation. The Damascus Gate, one of the main entrances to the Old City of Jerusalem, holds deep historical and religious significance for both Israelis and Palestinians. For Muslims, it marks the starting point for the nightly Ramadan procession to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. For Jews, the area is revered as the closest accessible point to the Temple Mount. This convergence makes the Damascus Gate area a perennial flashpoint for tensions. During Ramadan, Israeli authorities often heighten security measures which Palestinians perceive as restrictions on their freedom, fueling resentment.
The Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in East Jerusalem became a focal point of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in 2021, symbolizing the broader struggle over land, identity, and historical narratives. The dispute centered on the ownership of several homes claimed by both Palestinian and Jewish families, reignited long-standing grievances and exposed the complexities of the conflict's legal and historical dimensions. The origins of the dispute date back to the 19th century, when the land in question was owned by Jewish families. Following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, East Jerusalem, including Sheikh Jarrah, came under Jordanian control. Jordanian authorities subsequently housed Palestinian refugees displaced by the war in some of the properties, while others remained vacant. After Israel captured East Jerusalem in the 1967 Six-Day War, Israeli law allowed pre-1948 Jewish owners to reclaim their properties. This legal framework, however, did not extend the same right to Palestinians who lost land within Israel's pre-1967 borders.
Hamas, the Islamic militant group that controls the Gaza Strip, plays a complex and often inflammatory role in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Designated as a terrorist organization by many countries, Hamas is ideologically committed to the destruction of Israel and the establishment of an Islamic state in all of historic Palestine. Hamas's control of Gaza, a densely populated coastal enclave, has had devastating consequences for both Palestinians and Israelis. The group's repeated rocket attacks on Israeli civilians have instilled fear and disrupted daily life in southern Israel. Israel, for its part, has imposed a strict blockade on Gaza, citing security concerns and the need to prevent Hamas from acquiring weapons. The blockade, while intended to pressure Hamas, has had severe humanitarian consequences for the Palestinian population of Gaza, who face chronic shortages of food, medicine, and basic necessities.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is often reduced to simplistic narratives and polarized positions. It's a conflict where history is contested, narratives are weaponized, and accusations fly freely. In such a charged environment, it's easy to fall prey to confirmation bias, seeking out information that reinforces pre-existing beliefs while dismissing opposing viewpoints. However, understanding this complex conflict requires moving beyond simplistic binaries and engaging with the nuances and complexities that define it. It demands a willingness to listen to multiple perspectives, to acknowledge the humanity of both Israelis and Palestinians, and to recognize the historical grievances and aspirations that fuel the conflict. Informed dialogue necessitates a nuanced understanding of the historical context, the political realities on both sides, and the role of external actors. It involves recognizing that there are valid grievances and legitimate aspirations on both sides, even as we condemn acts of violence and human rights abuses.
The recent escalation of violence between Israel and Hamas triggered a wave of anti-Semitic incidents worldwide, highlighting the disturbing link between geopolitical events and the rise of hate crimes targeting Jews. From online hate speech to physical assaults and vandalism of synagogues, the surge in anti-Semitism exposed the persistence of ancient prejudices and the need for vigilance. The conflict, often portrayed through a simplistic lens, created a fertile ground for anti-Semitic tropes. Social media platforms became echo chambers for hate speech and misinformation. The BDS movement, while presenting itself as a human rights campaign, has been accused of blurring the lines between criticism of Israeli policies and anti-Semitism. The surge in anti-Semitism serves as a stark reminder that prejudice knows no boundaries. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with its long history of violence, mistrust, and missed opportunities, often appears intractable. The deep divisions, competing narratives, and entrenched positions make it easy to succumb to despair and to view peace as an impossible dream. However, amidst the darkness, there are glimmers of hope, faint but persistent, that remind us that a different future is possible. One source of hope lies in the tireless work of civil society organizations and individuals on both sides of the conflict who refuse to give up on peace. These peace builders, often working at great personal risk, engage in dialogue, promote understanding, and build bridges between communities torn apart by decades of animosity. The path to peace will undoubtedly be long and arduous, fraught with setbacks